All right, how is everybody today? Get started. My name is Greg Kigar. I'm the Director of Stadium Events with the Lansing Lugnuts. I actually started in March, but I have about a 30-year background in the sports and non-sports industry, including selling.
My point was just to be able to hear them.
Hi, Karen.
I can't hear it. Is your thing muted or no?
Karen's going to pop in. Maybe not. Anyway, I'm going to continue unless she pops in. So again, my name is Greg Kigar. I'm the Director of Stadium Events for the Lansing Lugnuts in Lansing, Michigan, obviously. And we had an interesting year, and I'm sure everybody out there has had the same. So what we did and what we were able to put into practice was what we had as our COVID protocols, which changed the whole ball game. So, and we lived it. We had a plan, no matter how many people you're going to have in the stands. Obviously, from March to June, it didn't look like we were going to be doing much of anything. And once we got the okay to go to 50 persons and then 100 persons, we developed, once we lost our minor league baseball season, we determined that we wanted to keep baseball in some form and fashion. So we developed the Lemonade League, which was a summer collegiate wood bat league. And once we determined what we were going to do and how we were going to do it, it was going to the drawing board and say, okay, how are we going to keep everybody safe? So much like everybody is doing around the state and around the country and really around the world, it took a lot of planning to determine how we were going to do those things. Number one is what section of our stadium are we going to open up? And obviously the emergency orders and executive orders had told us basically what we could and couldn't do. We had to determine if we have 20 baseball players on the field, if we could only have 100 people, how we were going to make all those things happen. So like any event, you're going to get that first phone call, you're going to get that first email. And now is, the new normal, which I'm sure all of you are probably sick and tired of those two words, but pretty soon it's just going to be the normal. So obviously a lot of sanitization, masks everywhere, any certain number of things, the social distancing, and then you go into all of the signage. So I don't think our lives change as far as preparing for the event, except putting COVID into play. And I sat on the board that kind of helped the governor to determine what we were going to do and how we were going to do it and kind of spread that out. So I was a part of that. And again, probably the best thing that we could do is we were able to put all these things into play and figure out what worked and what didn't work. So like any event you're going to run, you're going to meet with the client one way or another. Typically it's that phone call or email. And first thing you're going to talk about is how many people, is it going to be an interior? Is it going to be an exterior meet? Is it going to be a networking event? Is it going to be a sporting event? It could be any number of those things. So, and then you go through what your typical plan would be, and then you put the paste of COVID over the whole thing and figure out, okay, now how are we going to do it? We can't do it like last year. Again, the new normal comes up. So the way we went about it is we put a 2-page document together. And on top of that, once we got baseball involved, our document ended up being almost 17 pages because we had a very player-specific page or very player-specific packet, an event, a spectator page, and then we got into health links, temp checks, all those types of things. So the beginning of the event changed dramatically. And probably the toughest part is obviously with furloughs and layoffs, all these things fall on who we had left, which was the full-time salaried people who all of a sudden, our chef was raking the field. Our ticket person was behind the concession stand. So it was a pitch-in effort to to make these other events happen. So, typically, for instance, Lemonade League, 2 baseball teams, 2 umpires, and all of our fans entered a whole different area and sat out in our outfield near what we would determine a restaurant. It's not truly a restaurant. It's where our banquet hall is, one of our other venues on site. And so we treated it as there just happened to be a baseball game during your dinner. So our full-time staff became servers. Our food and beverage director became the bartender. And we went about providing a restaurant experience, social distancing, masking, and temp checks upon entry. And once they sat down and ate and drank, they were able to take their mask off. And in front of them wasn't a band, it was a baseball game. So we did that 20 times during July and August. And on the flip side, gave a great experience, I hope, to our collegiate baseball players, which had to wear masks when they were not playing. But we did live streaming of the event. We did 3 or 4 cameras, and we tried to make it as much of an event for them than for the 100 people that bought tickets to come to this event. So it was very different than a typical baseball game. For me, being, as our broadcaster called me, the commissioner of the Lemonade League, I stayed tied very closely with the teams and the umpire with anything they needed. I chased a lot of foul balls since there were no fans behind me, no fans in the seating bowl. They were all in the outfield concourses having dinner. So it was very different for everybody. And when I got the kids together before our season started, it was for myself, for our staff, obviously being a part of a baseball program, it's nothing like you're ever going to go through this year, possibly the following year. So the new normal, again, was, baseball can be exciting at times. We had one game-winning hit, and they had to air high five. It was just different. Everything that they remembered about the game, they had to put out of their heads and attack it completely different. And that's what, as event coordinators are doing around the world, is attacking what our events are very much differently. And I think the new normal is going to become the normal until we have another new normal, and who knows what that's going to be. So again, depending on what your event statuses are, what kind of venues there are, it's just attacking it a very different way and going into every meeting with your staff. For us, I think the toughest part was we have a rather inexperienced staff as far as the number of years in the industry, and they're so used to being in college and getting the rubric and everything is set, and this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to do it, and this is how much of this you need. And we're sitting around a table with our masks on, and mostly up until really late June, we were doing all these meetings by Zoom anyway, and going, we have a plan of attack depending on where we can be and how many people we can have, but it's going to be unlike anything you've ever experienced. It's patience was the number one key, and all of a sudden we had to go about things slowly and know that the plan that was laid out in front of us, depending on the executive order, could be blown up in an hour, let alone 24 hours or a week. So we had several plans, including no fans, 50 fans, 100 fans, 250 fans, 500 fans. Through the summer, we only got up to 100. So all our baseball games were 100. And then as we finished our season mid-August, things started to change and augment how we could do things. And we had to come up with different ways to obviously gain some revenue back from what we lost. And that, we did movie nights, we did youth travel baseball tournaments. We were able to do a couple grad parties at a very small scale. And again, those things changed because of COVID. No walk-up service for the bar service, had to have servers. Any food you wanted had to be served to you, where you could walk interiorly, 5 to 10 at a time to ask for a certain item, and then it was be given it to you. So those people that work with food and beverage understand that the old buffet stations and coffee service and water stations are, as of now, a thing of the past. And so having somebody that's lived through that really since mid-June, all I can say is patience is complete key to everything, whether you're experienced or inexperienced. Some people are just set in their ways and they want the plan, and this is how the plan's going to be. So for some of your staffs that are that way, it's going to take some time to get them to understand that, we can't attack the same way, these same things, and realize that, we want to be successful. We're going to be successful. And we have an open mind. We may go into have the whole plan of attack set, get to the day of the event, and all of a sudden things change, whether it's an emergency order or all of a sudden they have 50 more people that want to come and they're at their capacity, depending on the venue that they're using. And so it's been a trying time. We have the final walkthrough today for an event for next Saturday. And there's going to be a band playing and 60 to 80 people in an outdoor event on November 14th. And those comes with challenges. And obviously our warmer weather now is going to turn colder. And then you start talking about propane heaters and those types of things. And as a staff, how do you go about things? And as a company event, how do you keep them safe? So it just goes back to planning, knowing that the plan could be blown up in a matter of minutes and seconds and hours. And so it's just one of those things that on top of all that, costs go up. You need more staffing. You need more cleaning, more sanitization. Again, and speaking with those people that want to bring their event to your facility, it's about laying out the plan for them, saying, if you want to do it here, here's how you're going to do it. And obviously, as event organizers, you never want to surprise people with some things at the last second, just because you didn't bring it up or maybe they didn't ask you the question. So on top of being a good event organizer, it's laying out some details that even though they haven't asked you the question yet, it's a matter of giving them the information and let them determine before the day of the event, hopefully, that some of those things just you have to talk about those things. So whether it's, something as silly as, can they bring animals to an event, which we typically do, usually our Wednesday, but going back to, again, the new normal and how we attack things with COVID. And again, it's on the rise. So again, we had a staff meeting yesterday by Zoom, and it's like, okay, where are we headed back where we were back in April and May, and things just don't look great. So again, I would say going back to the type of events you can bring in, brainstorming ideas. God, we spend so much time brainstorming ideas between our people on the different things we can do. Obviously, everyone's looking to not only, get revenue, maximize revenue is kind of a thing, but regain revenue that was lost through the summer. So, outside of a lot of those things, it's hard to be all encompassing in this presentation because there's so many different avenues. State and the people part of this association do things at a much grander scale that we do with Lugnets at Jackson Field. So if somebody wants to go ahead and chat in a specific question, I can give you some ideas on how we attack those things. Obviously, every question, it can't be answered in the same way for everybody, but what I can do is give you an idea. And again, if you go to our website, lansinglugnets.com, look up our office. If anybody has a question that they thought of later, you can feel free to go ahead and email me. My office number is there as well. But having lived it for a few months, the new normal, it's been very interesting to see people's perception of safety for themselves and other people. I'm sure everyone's come up to, we got people that think there's nothing going on and they don't have to wear a mask wherever they go. And they got some people that are Determined to stay safe. Hi, Lisa. How are you? So determined to stay safe that they almost feel like they're petrified, they're frozen, and don't want anybody to come near them, and so you're going to work with those two extremes. But at the end of the day, it's keeping everyone that comes in safe, keeping your staff safe, and just creating as much normalcy as you can surrounding everything that's going on. Looking through my notes, again, a lot of the protocols are the same. Temp checks when you come in, doing some other things to make sure that we have everybody fill out that ever bought a ticket, fill out a health link. Our workers fill out health links, making sure that they feel well enough to come into work, and being very broad. And if you don't feel well, don't come in. You can still do most of your work from home. And it was much easier early when we couldn't do events. So again, it went back to the planning on when we got the chance to be prepared. So when we did, we were able to hop right on it. And that's really what the Lemonade League was all about. I did most of that work from home, contacting prospective players and coaches and doing all those things from home, and knowing that a plan was going to put in place. And there were several. There was plans A through H, I think, depending on what we had to deal with. So everything was laid out, and we just had to, wherever we ended up per an executive order, we had a plan for that. So that's the only thing I can do is say that prior to what events you have coming in, have that plan in place, have documents in place, and what fairs and festivals will look like here in the near future. We canceled over 100 events, including some bigger events that are obviously ticket driven that we didn't do. And people are, we want to do them in 2021, but until we have some semblance of where we can go, people haven't been good about trying to set some dates up, and that's a struggle for our industry. So. But outside of those things, it's really patience for our staffs, a clear understanding of we're going to make several different plans and move forward on whichever plan is going to be effective for the time we're in. And again, we had meetings and things. We had 2 meetings this past week. We had Dick's Sporting Goods come to do their national conference, much like this. They had their national conference, and their regional store managers came to our facility, used our banquet room for 15 people, and they did their national conference from our banquet room, and we had beverages for them, and they brought their own food in, and isn't typically what we would do, but they had one place to come to that they felt safe, and we did temp checks, and they did the health link every day before they came in, and they did their thing, and we opened the door when they got there and locked the door when they left, and sanitized and cleaned and made sure they were prepared for all 3 that they were in. So again, it's being adaptive, it's being patient, it's being all those things all at once. So that's what kind of COVID has brought to us. We're in the process working with Meyer to, they're doing flu shots, a walk-in Monday and Tuesday at our stadium next week, and doing a drive-through service underneath a parking ramp across the street from us. And so we're going to do those Monday and Tuesday. Again, temp checks, health links before they come into our facility, walk through, fill out their paperwork, register, meet with a nurse in a booth, get their shot, and walk out and get in their car and drive off. And hopefully when this vaccine comes, we'll have a good enough experience that I can see down the line when that comes, that this is kind of a first run on how we can do those types of things, and have Comerica Park down in Detroit's doing the same thing with Meyer. So when this vaccine comes, we'll be prepared and ready, and be a place that people can come to and hopefully get rid of this thing and go back to the some semblance of the old normal rather than a different new normal. So by chat, if anyone wanted to chime in on what their experiences might be or ask me a specific question on how we handled some things, I'd be happy to answer any question by chat somebody might have. A good source of information, thanks, Mark. Good source of information that we use to get the latest guidelines. We used the CDC guidelines, but we went into this going back to the Lemonade League before we had one person in the stadium. We met with Ingham County's health department. We had phone call after phone call after phone call, and then we invited her to our first game to basically assess our plan. And she had, I think the day before, she had shut down a youth lacrosse game with kids just not wearing masks on the sidelines. And so we've had a great relationship with them. We ended up not having just a little more detail in the Lemonade League. We had two teams made up of the same players, no travel. They come to the stadium basically a half hour to an hour before their game. We're able to do some working out prior to the game, and they just went right into the game. So when they weren't playing, they were wearing their masks. Our fans out in the outfield concourses, when they got up to go to the bathroom or anything else out of their seat, they were required to continue to wear their mask. So back to the question, it was basically working hand in hand with Ingham County in our case, and getting updates every day if necessary, and sharing that plan with them. They tweaked a few things that they thought would be beneficial for us, and we went forward, and we had one game rain out, but we did not have one issue with COVID. All the players had to get tested before they were able to come to the stadium and play. So we had everybody had their negative tests, all the coaches negative tested. And then midway through the season, it was about a 5.5 week season. So midway through, between the 10th and 12th game, they did a test. And we had a couple guys that before they came tested positive, and they did their 14-day quarantine. And actually we had 3 players that lived together. All 3 came up with it. So they were quarantined, and we waited for 2 negative tests, and they were allowed to play once they were done with their quarantine and tested negative. So, but once we got everybody there, nobody tested positive, and we were able to get through our season unscathed, which was really nice, as we were seeing, I believe, one Northwoods League game. I think it was Northwoods League in Kalamazoo. Apparently the sheriff stopped the game midway because he didn't like what he saw, and they shut down for three days, I believe. Up in Traverse City, I think they shut down for a period of time with some positive tests. So we tried to do our due diligence, and we had meetings with basically player only and coaches and myself, and if we saw anybody slacking, we had our people that work for us that would go back and forth between each dugout and let guys know that, they weren't wearing their masks or down in the bullpen, and try to keep 6 feet apart, and did what we could. So could have been better, probably, but the fact that we had no positive tests really made us feel good about the due diligence we did do in making sure everybody stayed safe. And, that included umpires. And we had a couple poor calls in the coach's instance where they went out to argue, and masks went up, and they stayed apart and had their discussion, and that was it. And, we've had a couple people not enter other events we've had because they didn't want to wear their mask, and we were going to make them. So, but we've had, nobody once inside. We really didn't have any issues, but we had a lot of signage, and our staff was free to let people know that what they saw wasn't right. And if they didn't want to wear their mask, they had to leave. So no issues, but again, they're looking into 2021. Minor league baseball is going to look very different. Major League Baseball is basically taking over the ownership of the minor leagues. And so we'll still have affiliated baseball, but it's going to look very different. And so we're not only waiting for a schedule, how many games we're going to play, when we're going to start. So those of you out there that are minor league baseball fans, it's going to look very different, which puts us in a situation, being a multi-facility venue, that it's hard to plan for non-lug nut baseball games when you're really unsure when you're going to have a game, when you're going to have a season, how long your homestands are going to be. There's a chance we lose 2 or 3 teams in our division ourselves. There's a good chance that over 100 teams are going to get dropped as affiliated baseball with the major leagues. And so the minor league system is going to look very different moving forward. And once Major League Baseball takes over, a lot of the facility standards are going to be heightened. So not only we're looking at obviously losing a lot of revenue, we're going to be adding a lot of expenses to make sure our lights, and it's not just us, it's every team across the board that stays in affiliated baseball. Many updated standards on square footage of certain rooms for players, and now there's nutrition rooms and larger trainers rooms, and now that there's more female staff than ever, separate areas for them, and the light standards are going to go up, and even the number of batting tunnels for hitting inside are going to change, and so everyone's kind of right now on the hot seat on what do we have, where do we go from here, how much is that going to cost, and are we going to lose our affiliation because of that? So as a minor league entity right now, that is, we were supposed to celebrate our 25th year this year, and that things are going to change. So not only are we dealing with the COVID issues that are upon us, we're dealing with really changes to our whole system on how we've been doing business as a minor league affiliate for the last 25 years. So things are changing all over for different reasons. Anybody have any other information that they want to share with what they're doing, or have a question for me? Again, thanks for that, Michael. Now, another thing we're working with too, not knowing what our future holds, is again, as far as our staff is concerned, we lost 11 or 12, about half of our staff, to furloughs or layoffs, and we're trying to bring some of our salespeople back, hoping that at some point we'll not only we have something to sell, but we'll know when we can sell it and what we're selling. We were very successful in school days, and the formats again are changing. We can only have so many school days, and every, as they say in the industry, getaway day, the last day of a homestand with a team that has to travel somewhere else the next day, we have to play an afternoon game or a late morning game, so they have more time to travel. So a lot of things are changing, even how we approach our baseball games as a whole. And us dealing also with food and beverage, those of you who have those under their scope, those things change as well. And I'm sure you've been working with how those changes are going to take place, and how you're serving people rather than people serving themselves. And all those things are changing, and hopefully everyone's gotten a chance to live some of that. So before they get back into a somewhat more hectic season, there is a way that you've had some practice. And again, we've been so-called practicing since June. So again, I implore you to get to my email. It's gkigar@lansinglugnutz.com, GKIGAR@lansinglugnutz.com. If you have a specific question down the line, feel free to get a hold of me and ask how we dealt with some things. And if you have a great idea that you're coming across that I could use, I would certainly appreciate that, because I think that's what these networking events do, is help all being a little bit more efficient in what we're doing. And obviously we are either just entering, getting back into events for this fall and winter, or you've been through it like we have and slowly trying to find a more efficient way to do things. But in dealing with the COVID thing, it's doing your due diligence. It's the health screenings, the temp checks, the social distancing, signage, masks, all those things play a part. And you can't just put the plan into place, walk away, and hope things are going to go great. Because as we've seen some of our people that kind of lax on some of the things because it gets tiring. I heard the expression kind of COVID fatigue, and we all have it. We've all had it for a while, but again, things get out of hand when we don't take it seriously every single day, every time you go into work, every time you meet with a client. And I think the more they see that the event organizers are taking it serious, they will take it back to their people and say, okay, if we're going to do it here, it's a serious thing, or we're not going to have an event. And that was kind of the nice thing, especially the movie nights. It was nice to see families come out and finally get out of their houses and watch the Field of Dreams on the big screen out in the outfield, and just enjoy some time on a blanket, sitting out in the outfield and watching a movie. And we did a number of those things. We had some decent weather up till Halloween, so we showed some scary movies, some kids movies, and I think we showed Frozen to 158 people between the seating bowl, and that's when we were able to go over 100. So it was nice seeing that end of the ballpark used again. A lot of people in the seating bowl, being able to use the concession stand a few at a time. So the traffic patterns change, the way you prepare your facility changes. But again, it's going back to doing your due diligence. Okay, I see Michael has another question. How do you people you're allowed in the stadium, and how do you control that number to make sure you don't go over? Basically, what we did is we just went by the guidelines. It was 50, then 100. I think now it's 1,000. And again, it's doing your due diligence. We did all ticketing online. So you had to buy your ticket online. You got the health link with your ticket. So when you did come, we knew the number it was going to come, and we could cut it. So when it was 100, we weren't going to sell over 100 tickets. So that made it really easy. There were no walk-up sales, which for a lot of us in the industry is some of the things you count on. So again, you attack it a different way. But initially we sold 100 tickets, and that was it. And they would get the health link, and they'd have to fill out the health link before they came. They come get their temp checks. They bought 4 tickets. The two of the other people that they brought didn't get the health link. So we had brought the QR codes back, and they were able to scan that, do it off their phone, and be good, get their temp check, all good, go in, meet our hostess. They sat at their table. They had some dinner and drinks and watched a baseball game. So that was probably the easiest part of it without the walk-up, is to just cut. You can only sell so many tickets. So that helped out. Make sure I get to your second question. That was just part of controlling the number. And again, it was just the CDC guidelines out of Ingham County, what we could do as far as allowing a certain number of fans and what we couldn't do. So we just followed that very strictly. Any other questions out there? Again, outside of kind of going over a lot of the same information, I think people have a pretty good idea on, what it takes. And again, for those people that haven't been able to put on an event yet, again, it's a little bit of a struggle to make sure you have certain events, prepare them in many different ways. Okay, I see we have another question. That's perfect. For free events, how do you handle people trying to resell their tickets to an event? That's a great question, because it did come up. Those of you near the area of Lansing, we had Nitro Circus on sale, and the date moved, and now it's postponed. And we allowed a 30-day window if they either wanted to keep their tickets, which we did an upgrade with head and certain tickets for Lugnut games, or they could get a refund, or they could forward their tickets and give them up to the Boys and Girls Club. And so we had a couple people reach out that had purchased tickets from somebody else, and obviously that puts us in a situation because we can't track that. So the only information we have is the original credit card it was purchased on. So to be honest, I'm not sure what our ticket personnel did for them, other than we couldn't just, all we could do was refund the credit card that was used. And obviously it wasn't the person that have the tickets weren't the person that we originally sold them to. So unfortunately, they had to hold on to them or, keep them. And if they couldn't make the new date, once we have a chance to make that new date, they may have to resell them again. But as of right now, with our protocols, we could only refund back to the original owner of those tickets, so to speak. Okay, another question. Yeah, we use the same kind of thing. Again, it's tough. I mean, people came back to, thinking that everything was back to normal, and they wanted to walk up to our window and purchase tickets, and it just wasn't going to happen. We had our even a couple times at our baseball games, and by the third game, we had solely put out ticket sales for a few games at a time. And then when we saw we were going to be successful, we decided to put the whole season on sale. And I want to say the last 10 games were sold out before we got to the fifth or sixth game. So we still have people walking up to, we had moved the entry gate to another area of the stadium, and people either thought it was just a free event they could walk into because it wasn't lug nut baseball, it was just baseball, or they expected to just be able to come and buy a ticket there, which unfortunately, per our protocols, just couldn't happen. We had to know how many people we had there. We had to know that they had their ticket purchased, they had fill out the health link, and they were going to get the temp check once they got there. So the reselling of tickets were on their own. And again, we had enough of that we got out the QR code. They were able to scan and fill out the health link there, got their temp check, and were able to enter that way, regardless of whether they bought the tickets primarily from us or bought them from somebody else. But that's a great idea. We just haven't had to run up against that very often, and I'm sure that's something we'll have to do as we hopefully break a little freer in the spring and obviously in the summer with lug nut baseball and some of the other things we want to do. We canceled 2 big concerts with Common Ground Festival, and hope to bring those back. We have our 2 dates set for July, and we'll see what the new normal is, and live with those consequences, and hopefully things will open up, and again the vaccine comes, and we can feel a little freer with what we, one, can offer, and 2, how many people we can bring into the events and still continue to do it safely. Any other questions out there? That was a good one. I appreciate that one. I hadn't thought of that because we haven't had baseball in a while, but yes, having the people that have purchased them from somebody else are slightly out of luck unless they can either make up the proposed date coming up or find someone to sell them to. Great question. Anybody out there doing some type of winter event that they're going to have to, whether it's an interior event or an exterior event, we're thinking of trying to do a couple things and coming up with some ideas on, again, how many people do we think we can serve by then? And our stadium is a little different, again, because it's city owned. In several of our areas, they are on exterior walls, and we get a lot of our water shut off. And don't have climate control in a lot of those areas. So again, our scope changes dramatically once winter sets in and until spring comes. So again, we're not able to serve too much inside, up to 40 and 50 people safely in one of our banquet areas. And right now we're at 1,000 people outside, and we're talking to somebody about a February event outside with heaters and doing some things, which will be fun. That's what's great about our staff. We rarely say no to something because we like to figure out how to do it. And that's the fun part about these jobs is you get a chance to, and now more than ever, a variation of what you used to do and how you can do it. Hopefully make money, and whether it's something you used to do with 5,000 people, now you got to figure out a way to do it with 500 people. And is it worth doing for 500 people? And a lot of those questions come from the heads of your departments on how much they're willing to spend people-wise, money-wise at figuring out how to do those things for fewer people. Get some water here. Any other questions out there? And obviously the touch points are probably a big thing, whether it's food and beverage or not, but we're going through diligently on all our areas, bathrooms, to make things as touchless as possible. Obviously moving forward, cashless, touchless. It's hard to feel warm and fuzzy in an event with a bunch of people when they can't be near each other. And, that's probably been a part of once we got outside our homes, and whether it was June, it seems like a year ago. It's tough. Concert festivals, some of those things that we watch movies and old events, and it's like, you look at it, it's kind of strange because obviously no one's wearing a mask from a movie or World Series 3 years ago, and it's like it was so carefree for so long, and now we have to be diligent on every move we make. Linda Kelly, Sender Snowfest. Yeah, I worked, part of my job experience, I worked at the Dow Event Center in Saginaw and working with people in Frankenmuth through the Saginaw Spirit. And, we're thinking now with the lug nuts at the stadium, trying to form some type of event in January, like some type of winter festival. And again, is what is worth doing for the few people you can have in it at one time, and the expense of all those things, because you're doing things so much differently, and you end up eliminating some of the most fun things that were worth doing the event. So we're thinking of the same types of things, doing some type of event to get people to come out. And again, it almost feels like it's counterproductive because you want to get people to come out, but only a certain number of people. And, we had discussions around July 4th, knowing that there were going to be big fireworks, and, what can we do for the city of Lansing, because we do 15, 20 small fireworks for baseball games and other events in our outfield. It's like, God, how much fun would that be to do that and get people out? And then the other side of that conversation is, okay, how many people is two people, or is too many people? It's, we weren't going to have anybody inside, but by the time they lined Cedar and Larch Streets, it was counterproductive to think we should do that, because you do that to bring people together. And what we've come to know is that the last thing we should be doing is bringing people together. So those type of events are exactly what we do it for. That's why we're in this industry. So I think out of a lot of industries out here, this industry is hit really hard, because it's very difficult being passionate about what we do and serving as many people as we can, and doing community events and private events and even events for your own staff and your family. And it's just really difficult to maintain that passion, knowing that, it'd be great to have 5,000 people or 10,000 people at a baseball game, and knowing you can only serve so many so well with the kind of due diligence on the screenings and everything that we have to live by right now. Anybody else out there having ideas on how they're changing the types of things that they used to do? Please go ahead and share. Let's see, we get about 13 minutes. I think we go to 10:25. But again, find me on lansinglugnets.com and share with me, and I'll keep sharing as more emails I'll get. I'll put something together, and obviously through the online convention is another way. But okay, Blue Water Area Chamber, is that in the Port Huron area? Yeah, it's I believe one of the in working the convention center. Is that near you guys? Taco and Tequila Fest. Yeah, all those things, they're so much fun, and you always have that person in the room too. That's the devil's advocate anyway, but that's good to have in your room, is to say, that sounds like fun, but what about this and what about this? And those are the things you got to talk through. And yes, Facebook Live is another good way to at least get people involved, much like how we're all getting involved here today. Is that it's this is built up to be such a great marketing networking event where everyone gets their ideas, but it's so much more fun to be together and go out for a beer afterwards and do these types of things. But again, a stupid new normal term that we're all getting tired of using, but that's exactly what it is. And all these events are so much fun. We have a chili cook-off. We have a beer fest, and that's typically just a fun fall event for us to get everybody down on the field and be able to try new things. And it's almost like we're now in the business of sucking the fun out of things, because that's the way we have to do it. And it turns a lot of people off, and you can either do business with them or you can. And once they understand that it can't be like it used to be, it makes our job easier, but it also makes it tougher, because it's no fun for us either. It's fun to get our hands dirty and see a lot of people entering your facilities and really enjoying themselves, knowing that you had a hand in every part of it. And that's what makes it fun for us passionate, events-driven people in our industry. Anybody else using anything like Facebook Live or anything that are at least getting people together? Please share your ideas. It's fun for us all to try to figure out different ways to get people together. Tacos and tequila sound like a lot of fun, but when you're alone in a room, it's not nearly as much fun. Let's see. I've gone through about everything I have as far as our experiences. And again, it's going into 2021. Our business is again twofold for maybe the people that are gotten into the session late. But as far as minor league baseball is concerned, let alone a multi-facility venue, not only are we dealing with what the next wave of COVID is going to bring us, our standards are changing. So again, those of you that are minor league baseball fans, how you have seen us work is going to change, whether it's less games. They're talking about having 2 waves of spring training now, where spring training for AAA and Major League players first to let their season start, and then doing a second spring training for the players further down the line. And then if the first one's successful, then they'll starting to distribute their players throughout the country to their various minor league teams, and possibly not starting minor leagues until May. And maybe we go to October instead of September. Maybe we have many fewer games. And for us, that means, right now we have so many event days, and so much percentage of those are baseball games. So if those percentages drop for us, what do we put back into play? For us, there's discussion on bringing the Lemonade League back and having a collegiate summer wood bat league going at the same time as the Lugnut baseball. And if Lugnut baseball gets pushed further into possibly June, once the college players get done with their collegiate season, they're looking for a place to play all summer. So maybe that end of May, early June is a good time for us to start the second season of Lemonade League instead of waiting till the fall. It felt like the fall. I guess it wasn't the fall. It was July and August. But, we want to place that in there somewhere for a 4 or 5 week period. So we're really just waiting for the powers that be to let us know when we can expect players, how many games we're going to end up playing. It's typically been 140, 70 home, 70 away, and now they're talking maybe only 50 or 60 home games. So we're definitely trying to find a way. Any other ideas? I still see we have a few people in the room. Anyone else have an idea that they're working on or trying to get information on how they can go about having that at their venue, that specific event or certain events at their venue, and keep people as safe as possible? Not that you're out here to watch me drink water, but this is tough for me. I love being in front of people, and the more passionate I talk about events, the more I move around, the more my hands move around. So sitting in my living room on the couch with my hands folded is extremely difficult. Any last questions? I don't know if we want to shut this down early, but I'm going to start talking about the same information for a 4th time. I haven't seen too many new people stroll through the session, but again, Kigar at LansingLugnuts.com, Gigar. Again, I have many different areas of I'll call semi-expertise. Been in it for 30 years on the collegiate sports side of things, on the minor league baseball and hockey sports side of things. Worked as the director of operations at the Dow Event Center in Saginaw, Michigan. For those of you that know about that, it's a hockey arena, a banquet hall, and then the 2,200 seat theater all in one venue. So I spent 6 years at the University of Notre Dame as an intramural director there a while ago, and so I've been able to see different types of events from many different angles. So if you have a question or something just doesn't feel right, or for some reason you're not getting the outcome you think you should be getting, feel free to get on the website, get my email if you haven't heard it yet, and shoot me a question. And as I build, more people get back to me what I'd be more than willing to do, unless there's a way to do it on this site, is keep everybody informed on some of the things we're doing, and in turn, getting everybody's idea out there, and how people are basically navigating through the COVID thing with as many uncertainties, other than we're going to be wearing masks for a while. We're going to be staying socially distant for a while. We're going to be sanitizing for a while, way more than we used to, and having fewer people around in certain areas. So that's the new normal. And I got to think of another term. If anybody has a better term than new normal, I'd be glad to hear it, because I'm tired of using it, and I'm sure you're tired of using it and hearing it as well. So, and there's going to be a newer normal, and we'll see how long it takes before we can get back as event organizers to really push the envelope and be creative as possible. And right now, our creative people are doing an amazing job, because, not that you don't want those creative people in the room. You should too during normal circumstances, but now more than ever, it's like, okay, we used to get 1,000 people to this event. Now we can't. How can we keep it contained? Do we do we even thought of doing like matinees and doing two of the same thing that you typically wouldn't do for certain events. You'd have, one big event. Now, is it worth doing 2 or 3 events over a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and just doing the same thing multiple times in order to still service the same amount of people, and certainly, hopefully, bring as much revenue in as you normally would have. And on top of all that, those of you that deal with sponsor activation, that's, the Lemonade League was one of those ways that we could stay in touch and activate a lot of our sponsorship responsibilities. And some people were great with that, some not so much, but we did what we could. And that was one of the reasons that live streaming was such a success, because we were still able to do Facebook Live, YouTube, Vimeo as well, I think, is something we use for our Lemonade League games. And we had some fun. We got on once a week and spotlighted a couple players and talked with a couple coaches. And I got on once in a while and had a conversation by Zoom. And actually, those of you that are Detroit Tiger fans, Chet Lemon is one of our favorite players. So we ended up calling these things Chat Lemons, because it was basically a chat with our players and coaches about the Lemonade League and their experience. And it was a lot of fun. So when a lot of summer wood bat leagues left the scene and dropped their events, we were able to pick up some. I think we ended up with 54 players for a 5-week 20-game season, and players are reaching out now wondering if we're going to do it again. So once we get minor league baseball side of things figured out, and when our schedule, which we would typically have had for a month or two now for next year, we may not get till December or January. So we're trying to get those, much like everybody on here, trying to figure out not only when they can hold events, but how they can attack them to get to the number of attendees that you can get. And right now, nobody can really tell us anything. And we get the new order and we push forward on that number, knowing that if, we're planning an event 3 months from now, that those things can change. So looks like we are up against time. I see it's 10:24. Any last questions before we sign off? Just want to thank Mike for reaching out and getting a hold of me, knowing that we had done some things this summer, and I appreciate it. I love being able to talk about events, and hopefully some point we can come back and be together and talk about all the thousands of people we were able to do some things with. So again, my name is Greg Kigar, Director of Stadium Events with the Lansing Lugnuts, and I appreciate the time we spent together and the questions we've gotten. And for the last time, reach out by email and share some things, and I'll share some things back with you as we move into whatever new normal is next. So any last questions? I appreciate it. Thanks so much, and keep working hard. This isn't ending anytime soon, and just feel passionate about the work you're doing, because it is making a difference, even though it's for a few less people than we're used to. So thanks again.